another world.
Yeah. Yep. It is. So yeah, I'm in a totally. I'm actually back when I first came back to Persian in the building we're in now, 1989. I'm sitting almost exactly where I sat then.
Wow.
All right, you guys ready to get to work?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Let's get to work.
All right. Let me try the classroom. Doom to doom doom doom. I forgot I had the classroom is one of my setups, and I just have to modify now so that it works right.
Just a
Oh
friendly
yeah.
reminder: make sure you run the bot. You missed that last week.
Yeah, no, I fixed the bot already. If you mean fixing it so it says the right thing.
I don't know. I just remember you had an issue. I was just teasing.
Yes, yeah, no, I had to fix it because I didn't have it running the right thing, but now it should be good. I didn't have the right title for the stream, and I didn't have the right wake up where it comes and tells them on a regular basis what's going on. But that's all good now, I believe. I believe. All right, tools. I need my board editor over here. Need to shrink that down for sure. Why is that so large? There we go. All right, working it, working it. We're getting it. We're getting it. We're almost there. I don't know where that's going, but okay. Good. All right, I will fix that up. And so what we're going to start with today is we're going to talk about alignment. So let me go to analysis board over here and see if that looks right. Okay, we're close. Let me jazz this up just a wee bit. I will be fixing this. We are on lesson 112, even though my screen doesn't say that yet. It will in a moment. Nope, that needs to say that size. And that needs to move over to there. All right, let's see if I can fix that. All right, so I'm gonna fix this up, which is homework I need to do every Wednesday, so that we can have our two boards showing, and I can flip between the analysis board and the board editor, where I can show you guys positions without so much work going on. Let's fix that. All right, that's looking better. Oops, no, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to drag it that way. All right, so you guys can see everything, correct?
Yes.
All right, let me fix this. We are on lesson 112, I believe. And it should be on tactics. We're going to start tactics, guys.
Not alignment?
Yay.
No, alignment is going to be our path to finding tactics. So yes, both. Not tactics. Yes, we will be doing tactics, but we're going to be doing that with the benefit. I don't know who my first chatter is. One of you could be if you actually jumped out there, but right now I don't know who my first chatter is going to be. This should not be this. I did change my title. I could have sworn I did. All right, Irv, you're in.
First chatter.
All right, I just want to make sure that's up to date. Okay, everything's good. Let me make Irv the first chatter and we'll get right to the lesson part. Because I have to post these on YouTube and it's nice to have it ready to go. All right, there we go. All right, so what we're talking about when we talk about alignment is things when things are aligned with our king or our queen. So here's a simple example in the little board. And let's say we're playing like a Roy Lopez. It doesn't really matter. Okay, I'll play it like a Roy Lopez. But I want to show you, let's say we castle. All right. So now this bishop has found alignment with the queen. This alignment is called a pin. It's called a pin because if we move this knight, we'll lose something of greater value. This is another pin where white has pinned this knight. This piece of greater value is the king. So we call this one at the top an absolute pin because that knight cannot legally move because you will lose your king. And you cannot ever lose your king. You can never put yourself in check in a game. So therefore, that is an absolute pin and it can't be legally, that knight cannot legally move anywhere. This knight can move and you can allow your queen to be taken. And there's even opening variation where black gets checkmated and you give up your queen to do so. I'm not going to go over that right now, but so I want to show you that these are what we mean by alignment. Another alignment that you will find would be with a rook on a straight line with a king or with a queen. So let's say the queen is out here, the rook is over here, and even if these pawns are still here, black has aligned his rook with white's queen. And that can spell danger for later. So even though we both have pawns in the way, black can try to get rid of the pawn. And then once he gets rid of the pawn, if he can get rid of this pawn, that alignment becomes deadly, right? You could take the queen with your rook. Also understanding that pins, so let's say this pawn is here, this pawn is pinned, which means, let's say this pawn is gone. Okay, let's say it's got doubled up. And let's say this knight were to be here. Now this knight can move here, forking both the queen and the rook. Because if the pawn were to take, black would take the queen. So the queen would, in this situation, probably move, and you would still get the rook for the knight. So this is also a pin. Again, it's not an absolute pin, right? Because it's not a king, it's a queen. But chances are you're going to move the queen so you don't lose the queen and you lose the knight for the rook. So if this knight were someplace where he could have gotten there, just understand that he can go here and that can't be taken. Other ways you'll see this, which can be devastating, by the way, is if this pawn, I'm sorry, wrong color. If this pawn is pinned, so this pawn is actually pinned. And I've seen many a time when you get things like this, and the queen moves here, and it's like, you can't take the queen. It's so frustrating. You're like, what? Why can't I take that queen? I mean, you know, especially if the rook's here. Why can't I take the queen? I want to take the queen with my pawn. But you can't because it's absolutely pinned. Okay, it cannot move. And there's a line in the Stafford Gambit and many openings where you might even get into a variation with this happening, and then the king has to try to move to keep you from taking the pawn. So it's just fun stuff that can happen. All right? So pins are when you are attacking a piece that is hiding or blocking the attack from hitting a piece of greater value. Greater value. All right, let's look at another kind of alignment. I'm just going to put this here. Let's say we switch the two and the queen is here. Now, the queen is being attacked by the bishop. The queen can't take the bishop without losing the queen. But so the queen wants to move, right? It doesn't want to get killed. And when the queen moves, guess what? And let's put him here. You lose the rook. And even if this rook were protected, even if that rook were protected by another rook, you're still losing the exchange because the rook is worth more than the bishop in most cases. So the bishop is worth 3, the rook is worth 5. So this is called A. Anybody? If this is a pin, what is this one called?
Is that a skewer?
Skewer. Yes, very good. So when we attack something of greater value, and when that piece has to move because you don't want to trade it for this piece of lesser value, that we either win a piece outright, like in this case, we would win. They can't. Right now, white cannot stop you from winning this rook outright. Or even if it's protected, we'd still win the exchange because we're attacking something of greater value. So by the way, this would be considered a skewer also, because the queen moves, we win material. Now, it's not of greater value. The knight is not of greater value than the bishop. They're the same. As far as we're concerned, they're the same. But we would still be winning something for free. So our bishop would take the knight for free, in which case that's a skewer. Now, if this knight were out of the way and it's protected, it's not a skewer anymore. You're just attacking the queen. When the queen moves, you're going to lose the queen there too, but you get the idea, right? I mean, let's say you could have went here. You're not winning anything because it's protected and they're of equal value. So this is not a skewer. This is a skewer. And if this were a rook here, protected or not, that's still a skewer because I'm still going to win material. I'm going to win value. I'm going to gain value. 3 for 5. We good? Everybody good with that?
Yep.
All right, now there's another obscure part of alignment that I want to talk about. So we've talked about pins, and I've talked about skewers. So there's also double attacks. And double attacks come in multiple forms, like with knights. Knights are really good at double attacks, right? They attack 2 things at once. Knights are really good about that. In fact, this knight is attacking 8 squares at once. 8 squares at once. And granted, some of those squares are already occupied by his own pieces, but still that knight is attacking multiple squares, so it can do a double attack. But other pieces get to do a double attack too. Let's say this game went on in some way so that you had a murphed pawn. Okay, we did the murph move here. And let's say we are like this, and black offers you this pawn, and white says, yeah, yummy, yummy, free candy. Because, well, let's say he couldn't even take it back right away, right? Let's do it even then, because that even makes it even more enticing, right? So let's say white takes and he says, I'm protected by a pawn. If you take, you're going to lose your knight for a pawn, so that pawn was free. Yes, but what we're missing is this is a fork or a double attack. It's protected by the knight. If you take it with your bishop, you lose your bishop for the pawn. And so black says, I win material. Now this is also a form of alignment, although it is not the direct alignment that we are used to where things line up. But it is an alignment issue because they are where a pawn can fork them. And you'll have times where a knight can take this pawn, and that's an alignment issue also. You have to realize that the king and the rook are on the same color, and therefore they're liable to be hit by alignment. If we put the queen here, I'm hitting the queen, the rook, and the king, which is called a royal fork. Hey, Noah, how are you?
A royal fork.
Yes, it is called a royal fork. So we are attacking the king, the queen, and a castle or a rook is considered the royal fork. So this is also a sense of alignment, realizing that this square is very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. So let me show you, out of fun, I'm going to show you a game I'm playing now with one of my students. He is a beginner, but he's doing pretty well. Where do I find my own? Oh, let's just go to me. I just want to show you this game because there was an interesting opportunity which has been very interesting. You guys can't give me any hints or help. Hey, Sea Dog, because the game is still going on. But I want to show you just a nuance of this game. And let me fix the board now. Interesting. There we go. And it's a correspondence game, so it's got a lot of time. But I want to show you this interesting facet of this game, and I want to show you right here. All right, so we're in this situation. I've moved my knight here because I didn't want him to push this pawn. I wasn't overly worried about him pushing the pawn, but I don't want him to make an outpost for the knight. So I put my knight here first. I thought, yeah, you know, I'll block the pawn that I want him to move. He moved his rook up, and I attacked the rook. All right, now, help me out. Where should that rook go? Hey, Chess Kudo. Oh, thank you, my friend, thank you. Yes, it's because of my lack of ability to keep this board correct. So I will fix that board. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that fix, for that notice. And then I can enlarge this one. All right.
I'd say the rook. I'd say the rook should go to. I'm thinking D2.
All right. So let's say the rook goes to D2, which is what he did. All right. But before that, is there any free candy? When that rook moves to D2, is there any free candy? And all of you guys should be trying to answer. All of you guys that are in class. And not just Irv.
I'm thinking.
Oh, Giver of Water, a new opening. Well, what do you normally play? Do you play E4 or D4? While they think, I can maybe give you some advice. There's free candy to be had.
There is, then. All right.
There is free candy to be had. Okay, so you play, I don't know what the Nimzo Larsen is, I'd have to look it up. But you normally play D4 or C4? Man. All right, so I would offer, Sea-Dog, that you expand your horizons, and rather than play E4, only because it's going to open a whole lot of world to you, I don't want you to play E4 yet because that's just going to have too much studying. Let's go with the King's Indian attack, which would be and I want you to start it with knight to F3. That's what I would recommend for broadening your horizon. So it's not going all the way over to the E4 opening systems yet. It is, but it's not. It's not an E4 move, so you don't have to deal with all the different crazy answers that you might get. And instead, go ahead and play the King's Indian attack. Solid opening, good opening. Bobby Fischer played it, so it's not like it's obscure or dangerous or scary or risky.
I don't know if it's free candy, but if the bishop takes the pawn in the middle, and then the rook takes the bishop, then you can fork the king and the knight.
And the rook.
Yes.
You win the prize, Keith. Very good.
Way to go.
The free candy is the pawn, and guess what? That's what I took. So the free candy was the pawn because if the rook takes, then you fork and you win a rook and a pawn for the bishop. And yes, Noah, you can give answers because they can't read. Well, they could read, but they aren't going to read your notes. So feel free to give answers. They're in real life on the Zoom call. They can't hear you, of course, because you can't speak. All right, so yes, that was free candy, so I took the free candy. So let's go, and let's say the game goes on a little further. Show me more free candy. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait. Let me put this in. I don't think this mode will... it didn't destroy my board too much. All right, so what I wanted to show you, which I don't know if I can do here. Yes. Now, show me free candy again. Because he just took away, right? That I can't go here, right?
Right.
So now my bishop is under attack. Is there any other free candy?
Yes. F2.
F2 is now free candy. Because if he takes, you get this fork.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that a beautiful thing?
Sure is.
So, he moved this pawn. So guess what I did? I said, go away, knight. And I'm looking. Where's the knight going to go? These are all the squares he could go to. Can't go there because it's taken. Can't go there because it's taken. All right. So obviously here is bad, right? That's a bad square to go to. That would lose the knight for a pawn. This is a bad square because you would lose the knight for a pawn. This is a bad square because you'd lose the knight for a pawn. So what are we down to? We're down to here, here, or here. And this one's a bad square because he'd lose the knight for free. Agreed? Okay, so where does he go? He can go here or here. And if my opponent is watching this lesson, he'll know. But my plan is if he were to go here, I take that free candy. And I just took a pawn that didn't look like it was for free, but it was. And now I'm taking another pawn that doesn't look like it's for free, but it is, if he moves the knight. Right now the knight's protecting it. So I said, let's get the knight to move. And of course, if he still takes, he still loses the rook for the knight. For the bishop. So I only see him having this move and this move. And if he moves here, that's where I debated for a while. Do I just take him? Because if you notice, I'm up a piece now. I've been up a piece a little bit for a while. Like I said, he's a beginner, so it's no problem. But I could take his piece, or I can chase him. And where does he go now? Right from here, he can maybe go here, here, or here. No, he doesn't really have anything to attack. He's not attacking anything directly. So I can again take the pawn because the only thing that's going to be protecting is the rook, and I'll still be able to do this. So he still can't take back. So fun, huh? But I thought that was I thought it was very interesting because of the fact that this became free candy because of the alignment of if you take back. Now the alignment's not there yet, but I do have two squares that I can go and check the king. So this is a more obscure thought about alignment to realize, yes, if I can draw the rook here, I can fork the two. And remember, when you fork with a check, they can't ignore the fork. If I forked two rooks, you can ignore that, right? So back over here, we were talking about with the queen out and the pawn's gone, right? Maybe. And we said if this knight were to take here, that's a check. You can't ignore that. You can't ignore it, right? But if the king had been castled, oops, I lost my king. If the king had been castled, and there you go, and I'm attacking two rooks, black can just say, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take over here and do my own damage, right? Even checkmate, right? Haha, I can checkmate you. Let's say it's something like this. I can checkmate you in this move. But obviously if the king is there, then I can't play that checkmating move. I don't know where he might have been, that he's not under attack by this silly bishop. So let's just move that bishop someplace else. Right? So I can't say checkmate because the fork is hitting the king at the same time. And so I have to answer the check. I have to answer the check. Make sense? So this is an example of alignment, but it's more obscure. The alignment we're going to focus on tonight is going to be direct lines. Bishop's direct lines and rook's direct lines. Now, again, the two most common are pin and a skewer. By the way, we can also do double attacks, right? Let's say this knight were over here. I am threatening checkmate, and I'm threatening a knight that's unprotected, right? So let's say that knight was here and he moved here. So now I'm attacking that piece, and here I'm threatening checkmate. That's also a double attack, and this is also in essence because it's an alignment issue, right? That I'm aligned with the queen here and I'm aligned with the queen here, and I'm aligned with the bishop. So normally we have alignment where we're lining up, right? We're lining up with the king or the queen. But sometimes we're lining up with a pawn that is right next to the king or the queen, and it's going to cause us trouble. But again, those are a little bit more obscure. All right, so what I want to do now is I want to go look at some games, and we can look at your games. So I like to usually look at our tournament games. I hold a World Chess Championship every Monday night, which you guys are all welcome to play in. It's an under 2200 tournament, but it is under 2200, so they're pretty strong usually. So let's go find. Instead, I want to find one of your games. So I'm going to look for a clue. I'm going to look for a LLNP game. We haven't looked at his games. I'm usually looking at. I've looked at Murph's games and I've looked at Keith Love's games. I haven't looked at LLNP's games. All right. 6 days ago, you played in a Wednesday's class, and was that? Yeah, that was just a King's Gambit. Let's go look at it. All right, so this is a game that LLNP played, and let me see if I can improve the board a little bit so you can see both clocks a lot better. A lot better? A lot better.
Who'd you play?
Okay, he played one of our viewers, Kamania. And Kamania is, at the time, let's see, what is his rating? His rating was 1791, and Irv was 1603. And Irv lost the game, but it doesn't matter, right? I like looking at losses in general because you learn more normally from losses. But I'm okay with, you don't have to only look at losses, but this one just happened to be a loss.
You want to look at losses? We've got a lot of games to look at.
Oh. Is that for the whole class or just yourself, you thinking?
I'm talking about me.
All right.
You're speaking for the whole class. It's okay.
But let's see what we get. We get a King's Gambit, no problem. And so far it's just development. This is not an alignment issue unless I had a piece over here to worry about. Right? Can you translate that to English nocturnal? Because I have no clue what that is. Sorry. Yep, I don't know the language. All right, so Earth takes, which is, by the way, in general, we don't want to take in the King's Gambit. We want to keep hoping that Black takes. We don't want to take. So I would have liked to see the bishop out here for alignment, and then the knight get developed and the pawn, and then the bishop would, I would not ever take that pawn. Just saying, just for your edification, my brother. All right, so now we're getting into Fromm's Gambit land. Oh my gosh, what a weird transition to now being in a Fromm's Gambit type of setup. So we're looking at a little bit of an alignment attack here, but I'm really worried about all these lines, but I still don't see a direct alignment, right? There's no direct alignment. Okay. And we finally have alignment. Hey, Chess Wizard, we finally have alignment. Oh, Noah says a crazy line that you could try is B4. I don't know about it. Instead of this, I guess, but I don't like it because I don't want you not developing pieces more, moving pawns. Yeah. Okay, so no crazy lines. No crazy lines. Oh, way back? Okay, yeah. Okay. Chess Wizard, what are we doing? It should be on the title, but I don't know if it is correct. But anyway, we are doing tactics. We have started our lessons on tactics. Look above at the top. You'll see we're on lesson 112, tactics. All right, I don't know why this is still... oh, I know why, because I'm in a different kind of screen, so it's a little bit funky. Okay, there we go. All right, so where were we? We are alignment. We finally see alignment. Our first shot at alignment. That knight is pinned to the queen. Oh, I forgot to mention, but we'll demonstrate it now. When you have alignment, especially a pin. Skewers immediately win material because a skewer attacks something of greater value, and that thing of greater value has to leave or lose that thing of greater value. And then you take the thing behind it. Skewers are immediate. So if you can arrange for or orchestrate so that you can get a skewer, you can take the material right away. You get the material right away. Thank you, Chess Wizard. I'm all green, so I don't know if it's going to keep lagging. We'll see. But anyway, the so skewers you can take advantage of immediately. Pins you can't take advantage of until I can pile up on the pinned piece. Preferably, if I can pile up on that pinned piece with a pawn. If I can hit this piece with a pawn now, then I'm going to win that knight for a pawn. At least it feels that way, right? White can counterattack the bishop. So that way, if you take with the pawn, I take your bishop. I still am going to take to mess up your position, but I didn't lose a piece outright. But that's the goal, is when I pin something, I want to win that piece outright. So if that pawn has been pushed, people like to push Harry, the H pawn. Now that's a new in vogue thing for beginners. They all want to push that H pawn at the other side. So now you can't chase me away. If I were to get to this position, I'm going to win that. You can't stop me. I'm going to win that knight. Even if you break the pin, this is called breaking the pin, it's too late because I still take the knight with a pawn. So obviously, if you could break the pin before that, when he takes, you can run away. Okay? Find some place to go. You'd no longer lose your knight. But if you don't break the pin, you're going to lose the knight for a pawn. So pins you need to add pressure to. You need to pile up on. You can't usually win material immediately. Skewers, you win material right away. All right? So let's see what happens. We have alignment. Look at this. What else do we have? We have two pieces attacking the queen. If you count the bishop, it's three. If this pawn were to disappear, then he would lose the queen because it's two and there's only one protecting. Guess what? We can't castle. Troubles, huh? So what does he do? He tries to block that bishop's scope. Or as Gotham Chess might say, I'm going to block that bishop's vision. All right. And his opponent says, I don't care. Because guess what? If you take, what did we just say about the alignment here? You lose your queen. If you take the bishop or the knight, you lose your queen. So he ignores this pawn altogether, even though it's creating a fork. He ignores it because this alignment issue, there's two pieces aligned at the queen. All alignment, guys. So now he's attacking here, and now he's attacking here. We have a fork, and this piece is now attacked twice and protected twice, but it's getting scary. So he got to save the bishop, and at the same time gets to add a protector to the knight. So that's probably good for him, right? But guess what? We still can't take. These two pieces are both what we call in pre. E-N space P-R-I-S-E. In pre, I think it's French. But you can't take advantage of it because you're pinned. That pawn is actually pinned because of the alignment of the two pieces. So he takes here. Now, I remember this game, I thought maybe he would take with the pawn. Why take with the pawn, guys, instead of the bishop? I'm not saying it's the perfect move. I'm asking you, though, why would I consider taking with the pawn?
Always try to move your pawns towards the center.
Ah! No, I like to keep my pawns in front of my castle king if I can. But if I take with a pawn, I want to, in general, almost all the time, but so I can't say all the time. Most of the time, I want to take towards the center. So I'll agree with that. If I'm going to take with the pawn, I want to take towards the center. But why would I take with the pawn, or why would I take with the bishop?
Well, if you take with the pawn, you're forcing the bishop to run away.
Wait, very good, very good. Very good. So if you take with the pawn is now attacking a bishop. This pawn is attacking a bishop, but it can't take it because it's pinned. But this pawn could take this bishop. So what are we doing? We're gaining a tempo. So this isn't the lesson for today. This will be a lesson maybe in a month. Right? Tempo, time. But I've been talking about it from the very beginning. The very first lesson, we talk about time being a factor. So I don't want to miss the opportunity to stress that again for you guys, how time can be a factor. So this gains you tempo because the bishop wants to move. Now, does he have to? No, he can let you take. He could develop a piece. He could, I don't know, do other things he might think is worthwhile, right? But the piece is under attack. And by the way, the queen is now protected by the bishop. So now there's two pieces protecting the queen, which means what? That bishop can be taken. That pawn is no longer pinned. So it does two things. Gains a tempo by attacking the bishop with a pawn. And if that bishop moves, this bishop is free candy. Because the bishop is protecting the queen and the king is. So that's two. So you're going to win. This forcibly wins a piece.
Wow.
Now, that isn't an alignment issue. This is chess. This is calculation. So there's tactics, and pins, skewers, and double attacks are tactics. Pins, we're starting with pins and skewers, but we're starting with pins because it is the most common tactic in all of chess. Almost every game we look at, there will be a pin, or at least the opportunity for a pin. And here you have an example of a pin was already used, but we have a pin of this pawn and we have a pin of the knight. So Irv broke the pin, traded. If he traded this way, he would have, what's the third tactic we're learning tonight? Double attack. It's not with the same piece, but he's attacking one piece, two piece. And before, where this was pinned, it's no longer pinned. It is still pinned, but I'm not going to lose material. So the only way that black could save this bishop, you can't save both, right? But if he were to sacrifice a piece, because now we have 3 minor pieces versus 2, I still can't. Oh, actually, I can still take, because the bishop is still protecting it. So that wouldn't even save the dark squared bishop. Good one, Chess Kudo. Very good. Very good. Very good one. I like it. So, yes, if there's a move that you missed, and if there's an opportunity for a puzzle for you to create for your own studies, which I recommend you guys do, create puzzles from your own games, here would be one for you to make, Irv, is to make it here. I would show this move and say, what's the right move? And for you not just to go, oh, I remember, Marty talked about it, I'm going to take with the pawn. It should be why, right? You should be able to look at it and say, haha, it does all these great things. But Irv took with the bishop, still threatening here, but black easily gets to take and ruin the king side and remove the defender of the queen. So he loses nothing, right? But black is just fine. He is down a pawn, but that's it. He is down material. He's down a pawn, but he has 3 pieces developed, 3 pieces of development, while white has 0 development, and yeah, and he can't take that bishop.
What would you say is worth more, giving up a 1 pawn material or making it so somebody can't castle anymore?
It's a great question, Keith. Don't know if everybody heard Keith. I will repeat it. He says, which one's worth more, the pawn or the fact that the king is out in the open, right, and exposed? And we see that this pawn has moved up, this pawn is gone. So really, there's no safe place to castle. It's all based on situation, though, Keith. So the first thing you can say is, but white also has a very, very strong pawn center, right? There are no center pawns for black. So the way to think of that is if white can survive the threats of possibly getting my king, if I can survive those threats, then I have a better position. But I got to survive the threats. And the concept to both of these, to if it's better, which one is better, comes down to timing. If black can get an attack on this king before the king can get into safety somewhere, somehow, then it's worth it. If black can't get an attack going against this king fast enough, then white will consolidate the position and he'll just be up a pawn. So it's okay to be down a pawn for positional considerations, but understand that you normally have to take advantage of those positional considerations quickly. If it takes you too long, you will lose. You're still just down material. So this move does not attack this pawn. It's protected. And we still can't take because now the rook would take my queen. So I still can't take. All right. So white gets out of the pin. Remember the alignment. White changes the alignment. Look at this. So there's no alignment here. There's no alignment here to worry about. I mean, you could be, but that's a long ways to go. Because it's undefended, but it's a long ways to go. So white gets out of the alignment and says, now I'm threatening to win the bishop. All right, let's see what happens. We get a check, which he couldn't do from where he was. Or where was he? Here? Yeah, he was here. He couldn't get to here to say check, but now he can. So if white goes this way, guess what? We're back into an alignment issue. White can't go here, so now white can go here or block with the queen. Right? Who's winning? Who's winning right now?
Black.
No, white has more. White has one pawn more, right?
Oh, I was thinking about development.
Yeah, no, I meant who is winning in material. Sorry. So white is winning. So what do you do when you're winning in material?
Trade.
Trade what?
Pieces.
Not pawns. That's important. That's why the word answer trade is not it's not complete. It's not good enough. We don't want to trade pawns. We want to keep our pawns on the board. We want to trade pieces. So therefore, when all the pieces are gone, in this case, if all the pieces were gone but the kings, we'd have one pawn against none. If we traded everything equally, all the pawns, all the pieces equally, we would end up with that one pawn extra. But if we could keep more than one pawn, we want to do that because we're ahead. So trade pieces, not pawns. And black should be trading pawns, not pieces. Okay, so this check, it's a check, it's no big deal. White says, let's trade. I'm fine with trading, and by the way, so now I'm attacking two things. I have a double attack going. There is alignment here, but this alignment is first. So rather than just move and allow black to keep harassing white, white said, let's trade. Is this a good move or bad move for black? Bad. We just said black should not be trading pieces. He's down material. So we're back to an alignment, but we're attacking also. I mean, right? We're threatening to win the bishop. And now, do I care that my king doesn't have a safe haven? No. There's only two rooks and a knight and a bishop left. There's so few less pieces. There's so many less pieces. There's so many fewer pieces. There's a lot less pieces on the board. So the king no longer needs to hide. The king needs to become active. The king needs to get to the center of the board. But that was still an alignment. And the bishop could have went here. To maintain that alignment, the bishop could have went there. And keep that alignment. And that pawn still can't move. So that could have been an annoying situation. And white might do something like break the pin. So the pawn can move. All right, but instead, black. Yeah.
At the point where white was checked, and I think you answered this question later on. but I've got two choices. I can move the king, or I can trade the queen.
Can we change that? You can move the king, or you can offer a trade of queens.
Okay. Well, I can block with the queen.
Right. There you go. That's totally accurate. I can block with the queen, or I can move the king, right? Because anytime you're under attack, what can you do? You can interpose. You can run away. You could try to take the piece, which you can't. You can't defend the king because you're in check. You can't just say, I'll defend the king. And the other thing is you can attack something of greater. No, you can't attack anything of equal or greater value if the king is the piece that's under attack. So the only choices you are correct are to move or to block.
Okay. Would you consider the rationale of using the queen, because since your king is out in the open, if you can get the queens off the board, you don't have to worry about casting as much as having when the queens are on the board.
100%. That's what I was trying to say. Yes.
Okay, so that should be a factor in your deciding what to move.
So I have two reasons to do this rather than move the king. One of them is exactly like you said, happy to trade, because then my king being out in this open isn't half as dangerous because the queens are off the board. One more piece off the board. That's one reason. So definitely happy to. Another reason, if that queen does not trade, he loses the bishop. So the only other way that he could do it without trading is to do this first. And so that when I take back, he gets that move. Right? Other than that, if he moves the queen, he loses the bishop. If he moves the queen anyplace else, he's going to lose the bishop. Even if he protects it, he still loses it. So he can move the bishop, or he could trade the queen. So I like it because it's forcing black to make one of these two moves. Right? These are the only two viable moves black has. So it's forcing black to make one of two moves, which is easier for me as white to calculate what to do because I know he's down to two choices. If I give him 10 choices, I have no clue what he's going to do, and I have to spend more time contemplating all the options. So one reason is I'm happy to trade because my king is in the open. Another reason I'm happy to trade is because I'm up a pawn. Another reason I'm happy to do this is that it's a double attack and it's forcing. He's got to pick he's got to do something. So yeah, everything says Irving made by far the best move because, right, it's forcing. It gives him an opportunity to possibly win material, and if black takes like he did, white is very happy. He gains a tempo. The bishop has to leave, so I gain a tempo. I can develop a piece because the bishop has to move. And while while he runs away, I develop another piece, and I can get. And my king is in a good spot. It's closer to the center than black's king. So white is setting himself up for the future. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Bishop moves, and now Irv is restricting the bishop from coming here or here. So that's a positive. What's the negative with this, guys?
He should be developed.
Yeah. So how else can I keep the bishop from being annoying? I could just come here. If the bishop comes after me, I can do what? Same thing I did with the queen. And if he wants to take again, I could take with the pawn, and I'm happy. I've got 7 pawns. They're all connected. I got 1 big pawn island. He's got 2, and he's missing an extra pawn. And I've got a piece developed. So I'd much rather see him develop the piece. If he's worried about this check, which he didn't need to be, he could have just moved over. I mean, I would move this way since this is a semi-open file. But he could also just first develop the bishop, and then the knight gets to come here next, and I don't block in my bishop. So this would have been the move, if I was coaching him, is the move I'd make. Now, when you play hand and brain, I know we haven't done that yet, but I really like to do that sometime with class. In hand and brain, the brain would be the one, hopefully the higher rated player usually, but actually I think we do it the other way also. You don't want to say pawn, because if Irv was the brain, he'd say pawn, and white would have to find a good pawn move. Right? Because he said pawn. You got to move a pawn. So I'd have to find a pawn move. I might even do this, but yeah, I might do that. But if I was the brain and Irv was moving the pieces, I'd say bishop. Now he might move it here, and then I'd want to smack him in the head because he took away the only square for the knight besides this bad rim move. But he might move here, and I'd be okay with that because I wouldn't care, because if this moves, you just move the king. He might even move here, which is okay again, because if he moves here, then I can block. Don't have to do any of that, by the way. I do have a nice long dark pawn chain. I don't need to trade this bishop, but again, I don't mind trading because I'm up material. All right, so I don't like this move because it doesn't develop a piece, moves another pawn. My only developed piece is my king. I don't like that concept. And guess what? We don't develop a piece again.
How do we do that?
Yeah, why? Because we're probably thinking, hey, if he pushes here, then I could take, he could take. I still can't take this way. It's pinned. There's nothing protecting because I haven't developed these two pieces. My rooks aren't talking. So really, if he were to go here, I take. He could take with the bishop. I could take back. He could take back because I can't take back. It just feels annoying. Anyway, again, I don't like this. I would have liked to see the bishop get developed anywhere. I seriously don't care. Here would probably be great. And then the knight can get developed quicker. But okay, let's see what happens. Rook lift. Rook lifts are nice techniques that you guys can benefit and learn from and eventually. But I don't think the rook has too many great places to go. But let's see what happens. Finally, we developed the bishop. We're happy. We're getting happier. We're getting happier from a coaching standpoint. If his rook went here, he would be seeking alignment again, right? That would have been an alignment. But his rook went here. So it is, he's on now a semi-open file in a sense. Well, it's white semi-open file. But really, this rook, where's he going to go? This is the only square he can legally even, I'm not legally, but can get to. These squares are all covered by the king. And if he goes here to attack here twice, okay. So what would you do as white? You say, this is the only square that rook can get to. Maybe I'll just take it away. Maybe I take it away. Maybe I don't care. Maybe I let him go there and then just move the pawn. Right? And now he doesn't have any attack either. Okay, but let's see what Irv does. He develops a piece. He ignores it. I'm okay with that. And he isn't.
That's what I would have done.
And he isn't ready. He develops a piece, and he's looking at maybe getting his knight here and trading, right? Forcing. And now, so as me, if I'm white, what am I doing? What do you think you want to do as white? I want to trade off pieces. That rook is poorly placed. It has no place to go. Either I'm going to try to trap that rook, or I'm going to trade that rook. I'd be happy with either one. I'd be very happy with either one. All right, let's see what his opponent does. Irv pushes. Says, move the rook. You can't take because I'll just take. So move your rook. He moves the rook, the only square. We said that was the only square he had, right? So now white says, I'll trade off rooks. Okay, so here's where I would say, why not attack with the king? That rook still has no squares.
Wouldn't that be check?
Why is this check?
If he attacks with the king, if he takes the rook with the king, it would be check, wouldn't it? With the knight?
If he does what?
I'm threatening the rook, but the rook's protected, so I can't take it off.
Right, you can't take
You can't take it.
yet.
You're right.
So you're threatening this move next. You're right. I'm attacking the rook. And what's protecting the rook?
The knight.
This is the only piece protecting the rook, correct?
Move the defender.
So this is the only piece protecting it. Can the knight move without losing the rook? Nope.
Nope.
So
Some might pin it.
that's why I attack the piece, because there's nothing else defending it. So now I have one attacking, one defending. Now all I have to do is remove the defender. Removing the defender is another tactic. And we'll be getting to that maybe next week. Right now we're talking about alignment and pins and skewers and double attacks. Oh my. So I am I've only got one defender, so I would attack the rook because the rook has no squares. No squares to go to. And my next move I get to attack the knight. Pretty much no matter what black does, if he pushes the pawn, I can still just attack the knight. He could take. I can actually even take with the bishop. But then the rook gets to come over. So maybe I take here first. He could take me. I could take him. Yeah, but I probably wouldn't. I'd probably take the rook. It's worth more. If he takes, I take. If he takes, my knight moves. And I just got I'm up a whole rook. Make sense?
Yeah. This is a great game.
It's a good game for the lesson, I think so. All right, so I would have liked to see Irv move here. Big time. I would have liked to see, hey, thanks for the raid, Master John. Almost missed that. Thank you, guys. We are doing an in real life lesson. We are going over tactics. We are on lesson 112, by the way. Chess 112, not lesson 112. We started at lesson 100. So we're in chess 112, and we are talking about tactics. And specifically, we are talking about how to find tactics, pins, skewers, and double attacks through alignment. So if you've sought Chess Enlightenment in your life, you're looking for Chess Enlightenment, you've been sitting around meditating and reading and trying to, here's a better way. Go for Chess Alignment. Thank you, Chess Wizard. All right, so this is what I would want Irv to do, is because that rook has no squares, I'd want to attack it. Even though he's protected, I want to attack him to create pressure and then threaten to remove the defender and win the rook. And really, I don't see any way that black can stop you. And you might say, well, if I can move the knight, then the rook could be protected by the bishop. But the problem is that now if you move the knight, you lose the rook first. Right? You lose the rook. All right, so timing is important. If you attack right away, he can't run his knight anyplace else. You are locking his knight in. All right. But instead we go for the trade. See, I like this. When I saw that, I said, okay, good. He's going to come up here, and then he's going to win the rook. I mean, that seemed like the reason why he did this, to win the rook. But now we're willing to trade, which is kind of scary. If you take with the rook, how do you have to take back?
You take back with the king.
Yeah, you got to take back with the king. Otherwise, you drop the pawn, which is what your advantage was. But you could take with the rook. He could take here, and you can't, because you can't take here, because now the knights do go backwards. So yeah, you have to take with the king, right? Which, remember our king? We were like so happy because he was active, and now he's not. And now he's not as active. He's not in the center. We still have a beautiful pawn center, but I don't like this position as much as I like winning the rook. But anyway. Moving on. Knight comes in and says, I will trade you. I'll take your bishop. Of course, we protect the bishop. Could have protected it this way also. That was another option. Just another option. And the rook makes alignment with a pawn, but it's protected. So again, not too much to worry about. And white says, let's trade, because I'm all about trading. Again, I have no problem with this. But notice we have an isolated pawn, right? We didn't get to take back towards the center. So the pawn is isolated. It's a little weaker, a little harder to defend. Black is attacking nothing yet, but maybe he's hoping for the future. Like, this is a common move, guys. This is a common move because it attacks the base of the pawn chain and the next pawn in the pawn chain. Okay? Okay, guys, I got to take a quick pause. My chatter said, on brand new first time chatter, who's also just followed, said, so what do you mean by alignment? Piece placement in the middle game? And guess what Chess Wizard says? Chess Wizard says, don't get them started. So they've heard this a lot, Behold, G4. They've heard this a lot, that I get excited. By the way, guys, I got paid today. I teach this in real life class that you guys are getting to sit in on. All of my viewers on stream are auditing this class while my class is in real life taking the class via Zoom. I got paid today. So I got 20, what was it, 27?
24.
20, I got 24 everything New York or New Jersey bagels. They came in today, overnight mail. I already had one for dinner. So
For dinner?
I had one for dinner. I had some homemade chili and a bagel with butter for dinner. Yes, sir. I had one for dinner. All right. So alignment is yes. In fact, behold, if you go back and look at the beginning of this lesson, and unfortunately, I'm doing the lesson, so I got to keep going. But alignment is lining up, and it's not just in middle games. It's in the opening. It's in the middle game. It's in the end game. So if you look over here on the small board, you'll see that this bishop is aligned. This bishop is aligned with the king. This bishop is aligned with the queen. So that's a direct alignment that we like to talk about. This rook is now aligned with the king. So rooks and bishops and queens are great for direct alignment. We are also talked a little bit about double attacks being alignment. Anyway, so back to this particular part of the lesson, guys. This knight, if it attacks the base of a pawn chain, also attacks the next pawn in the pawn chain if you put it in the right square. Obviously, this square also does both. But, right, I could be attacking from here, and then I wouldn't be attacking this pawn also. So I can double attack the base of the pawn chain and the next pawn, which means if white does nothing, I'm going to win one of these two pawns. Because when I attack this pawn, if you move it, I win this pawn. Knights are good for this, guys. This is good. Get used to it. It's a nice pattern to know. He does need a... Oh, that's a great idea. I like it. It should be the principle of the week. I do have principle of the week, POTW, but I should put alignment as the principle of the week, or just put alignment as I like it. I like it, behold, I will. Oh, I appreciate it. So, white says, I see you. I see you. I know you're trying that, so I'm going to move the base of the pawn chain. Now, if black could put his knight here or here, he'd have that same double attack, right? But the knight can't get there right away. The knight's going to take time. Also, this removed another square for the knight to run to. So right now, that knight is down to only 2 squares safe that he could go to. So this took away a square from the knight and extended, right, removed the base of the pawn chain so he can't get the double attack. But notice black only has one piece he's able to attack with, right? Because everything else is safe. So Irv has the option of protecting or, again, pushing. And we can keep going on with this. Then he would have a double attack here. And now this would have 2 pieces attacking it. And this one would have 1. So he'd have to deal with that. So Irv says, nope, I'm not going to push the pawn because then he still gets a double attack. I'm going to protect. Okay. And we get another piece trying to get in. Can't get here. So maybe he's trying to go this way. Okay. So let's see if we get any more alignment issues in this game. So, by the way, here was where Irv made a mistake, and I told him, and I thought he should make a puzzle out of this. That's free candy, is it not, guys?
Yes.
But he was a little worried about this. I'm sorry. I don't think you were worried about, or were you? Were you worried about this one or the other one? Because this one sets you up for discovered attack where the knight can move, like taking a pawn.
Rook to A1, that's what I was worried about.
Right, so now if the knight takes, you're in check.
Yes.
But for me, it just says, I could take away these 2 squares now from the knight. I was only taking away 1. And guess where I'm moving my king towards? The center.
Yeah, but he then wins 2 pawns, though.
He then wins 2 pawns. Show me.
No, I'm sorry. I forgot the pawn on C3 was held by the rook.
Yeah, you put it there.
Yeah, no, I know.
All right. So, yeah, I think this was very... I thought you should have just let him come in because you got a free pawn. Right? That's a free pawn. So instead, you attack the knight.
Yes.
Okay. And, by the way, you could have attacked this way. Moving closer to the center again. But you didn't. You didn't go aggressive. You still attacked, but I mean, if I'm going to go, I'm going to go because I want to get up here in the center. So I would have.
I don't know how much time I had left, but I was.
3 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Your opponent had 50. Your opponent had 52 seconds. Sorry, the time is not a good excuse for you.
No, I said I don't know how much time I had.
I'm telling you, you had 3 minutes. It's on the screen. So anyway, I would still prefer you go there. Now he comes here. He can't go here. Can't go here. Right? Can't go here. So again, he's got no squares if you go here. And actually, the rook already has that. So that knight has no squares. So I'm back to take the pawn. Attack the rook with the pawn. What does he got? You just got a free pawn again.
I'm gonna put you in check though.
It'll put me in check? How?
No, you take it off with the rook.
Oh.
If you're talking about the knight, it falls to the rook. If I take, then yes, then the rook could come down. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah.
But I personally, I don't care. I still got a free pawn, and everything else is looking good. What's to worry?
And you move towards the center.
I'm moving towards the center. I'm happy overall, especially I'm ahead on time. I take the free pawn. Okay, free candy, guys. You gotta take free candy. So we do attack, but we aren't taking the free candy. And so remember the rook is coming over. So we take, which does what? Now he has a passed pawn. So at this point, he has no passed pawns. We're up a pawn. We're about to be up another pawn. So even though we only have 3 minutes left, he has 36 seconds left. This doesn't help. And then this taking doesn't help. I'd almost rather let him take, put the rook back, and then you'd win this pawn. He'd still have a passed pawn. But it's connected. Alrighty then. And we throw in a check. But again, he's taking. We're not taking back. And we still didn't take this pawn. So yeah, I don't like the check. We do finally take. And here, we could just take and stop the bleeding. Now, we're down to 3 pawns versus 3 pawns. We've lost our advantage. If we take the pawn and he takes back, which he probably will, we'll have lost our pawn advantage. But we're easily, going to try to keep and get this pawn maybe pushed. We got ideas. But this is dangerous because now that pawn pushes and you really... Look, you have no place to go to stop that pawn. So he says check first, and we still don't go here because now we'd lose the rook, right?
I saw that, so I didn't.
Right. I'd still like to see you go this way though, because this pawn is going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. So I think you need to get your king that way, but it's like you're going the wrong way. By the way, he could have ignored you and just pushed right away. Yeah. And if you take, he could take back. You push. He's going to queen before you do, and he queens with check. Now, I don't know if that's enough. Well, yeah, because then he could come right back here and hit the queening square. So if he gets the queen before you with check, he's going to also take away your queening square, I think. Let's see. Yep. Queen, check, you move somewhere. And then he gets to come right back here and say, boom. Now, you can maybe still queen. You might still be able to queen. Now, unfortunately, you don't queen with check. So, I mean, he could just start cleaning up material. And now, if he could trade off queens, he's still winning. Anyway. So that gets into an endgame. I'm just trying to see. I just want to see if there's another alignment opportunity. Really, there's not. Yeah, so. All right. Alrighty.
If you're done with this part of it, could you go back to when he did the rook lift? Because this is where the whole trouble started.
For black or for white?
For white. No, excuse me, for black, sorry. Remember, he brought the right here. So the idea, as we saw, was to bring the rook over, but it really couldn't do anything because that column is controlled by the king.
And this is a very important factor. Yes, this is a very important thing to learn for endgames, guys, which we started with endgames, so you should know some of this. The king does do a great job of keeping rooks out of the backfield. This king is hitting all three of these squares, all these squares. So a rook can't sit on any of these squares unless it's backed up. And in this case, since this rook is already hitting this square, this king can move here at any time he wants to. And now you have all of these squares taken.
And it's semi-open path.
Yep. So I would have been happy with this move at any time. Sorry?
So there was no point to his rook move.
Correct. He's not the strongest player either. I mean, he's learning. So he made a rook lift because he saw an open he thought maybe he could get in here and do something, but in reality there's nothing there. There's nothing there. He should have developed his piece.
Right.
Yeah, this is a bad move. That's a bad move. That's a bad move. And that's missing an opportunity to take advantage of the bad move. This is really bad move. And now this is the only, right? This is the best square for the knight. It's also the only square for the knight. So for him at this point to get anything into the game, his choices are here, which, by the way, now the knight can come here and double up too, is to come here right away to try to make an attack. That's really it. You can push this pawn or something because this rook can't get activated because that's the only square for the knight. And we just saw what Irving did worked fine. This pushes the rook forward. And then, as we said, if he had went here, that rook is not long for this world.
Right.
That rook is going to fall, or something else will have to be sacrificed. So yeah, this was very bad. 1, 2, 3 moves to basically put your rook in big time danger.
Right.
And why from my teaching you guys, so we did endgames, we talked about openings. Why? Because remember, what he's supposed to do in the opening is develop. Irv has neglected development, and he's getting away with it. His opponent castled, so he had one step ahead in development, which is now almost negated because the queen's and another minor piece, two minor pieces off the board. So it's not important anymore to be castled. But the idea of castling, remember, was to connect your rooks. So if black worked on getting this knight out, remember the bishop could have stayed here for alignment. And the knight could have went here if he doesn't want to go here. And I told you I like these center pawns. But yeah, both of them need to develop.
If
This
you're
is
black, the rook is obviously a bad move. But
and it's not a
the three-
developing move.
Right. The 3 pawns in the center is a bit
Is
of
it-
a limitation for black. Would you consider attacking that?
Oh yeah, but I would not consider attacking anything until I finish development.
Okay.
So, like, but when's a really good time to start thinking about using a rook lift?
So rook lifts are good, like if I got a king over here and I got a big attack coming with a lot of material and I need to get one more piece in there. You know, maybe I have a queen, so let's make a position over here on the board, and we can even leave that. Let's say I'm trying to build up an attack. And I have maybe a knight here, and I have a dark squared bishop, right? So I got all this nastiness trying to get started over here. All right? And so right now it's kind of defended. Let's say I even put a knight here, and I have my queen here. So I'm threatening mate, but I'm not because the knight's protecting it. And let's say we've castled, and let's say this pawn is gone, right? The pawn is gone. So nice time for a rook lift. Now I've got another piece attacking. And or maybe I lifted over here, so I'm attacking this square. Right? So when's it a nice time? When I need to add another piece to an attack, and I don't have time to get my own pawns out of the way. I can put my rook ahead of my pawns, So my pawns aren't in my way, and my rook becomes active. I activated my rook, because this rook is stuck behind his pawns. So this rook could say, I'm not behind my pawns anymore. And I can even go here, and let's say I can get this one to do a rook lift too. I can maybe even sacrifice, if I'm lucky. This one doesn't quite work because I'm still getting attacked. But the idea is that if I can, so let's say he pushes the pawn, and I can take it. It's free candy because he can't take it. It's an absolute pin, right? So I want to entice him to push. I don't want to just take. But notice that I can also go here. He can't take. It's an absolute pin. If I push, he can't take, and it's an absolute pin, so now I can bring over the other rook. All right, so this is what I might try doing. By the way, just for fun, he could have taken here. You could take this way, but you can't take this way because of the absolute pin. Alignment, alignment, alignment. And then we get a check. You can't put the knight in front because we would just take it for checkmate. So now the king has to move. Only legal square. Guess what the rook Liches did? Just ended the game, my friend.
I played a lot of games, but I've rarely had an opportunity to do like a successful rook lift.
Yeah, but it's a technique you'll learn. So, like I said, right here, let's say we slide this one over, right? Because we just did a rook lift. And now he's getting scared because he has all these pieces there. But let's say he says, well, I know I can't do this one because you just take it. So let's say he makes the mistake of going here. You can go here and say, I'm locking in that pawn. But we also, I think we pushed this one here earlier. But it doesn't matter. But this doesn't save him because you could just sack it. And now it's checkmate. Right? It's going to be checkmate. It's a beautiful thing. So yeah, rook lifts can be very useful. Very useful. But this was not a good use of a rook lift. This was premature. We haven't developed a knight. The rooks aren't talking. And I have no targets that I'm lifting for. And he can't even, there's no targets here. That's protected and that's protected. He has no targets. This rook